All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna get started here. In fact, let me walk you through what we're going to be talking about today because I'm excited about today. Today's going to be about power, purpose, production, and prosperity. And for those of you who haven't really thought about this much, I want to kind of start off with a little challenge for you. I would have you consider the possibility that all of these things are linked together ultimately. That if you want true prosperity in life, if you want a sense of purpose, you can't get there by doing exactly what everybody else is doing. And that's the key here. One of the key things here is in today's workshop is I want you to have a mind shift and shift that mindset to really understand that people who actually pull off this game of power and purpose and production and prosperity do things completely different than you do right now currently. In fact, we're coming up on the end of the first quarter for 2019. And a lot of us, especially business owners and entrepreneurs, we set targets way back at the beginning of the year. And so now is a perfect time for you to return and report on exactly how your year is going, how those targets are going. You know, we don't set goals here at Strategic Wealth Network. We set targets. And there's a big, big difference between your targets and your goals. And I'll be going into that in a little bit here. I've got my notes with me here that I'm going to be following. And so the first thing that I want to address is kind of the problem that we see today inside of business ownership and entrepreneurship and even investors out there. The main problem here is very simple, is that what we're searching for, what we're seeking is true prosperity in life. But the problem that we have is that we're leaking or lacking power. We don't have power. In order for us to truly achieve the ultimate game, which is true prosperity, a life of meaning and purpose, you have to be able to harness and actually call upon demand power in all areas of your life, power in your physical fitness and your health, with your anxiety, your stress level. You've got to be able to have that stuff under control. You've got to be able to tap into that higher power or God or the spirit, if you will, and listen to the voice and do what the voice is telling you to do. In order to truly achieve production and prosperity at the level that you're ultimately wanting to achieve it at, the targets that you set way back at the beginning of the year, you're going to have to tap into a higher power. Because the problem is that you don't have enough power intrinsically by yourself to pull this off. You just don't. And so in order for you to actually pull off the game of true prosperity, you're going to have to tap into a higher power. And there are different ways that we leak power and that power is lost every single day in our lives. And we'll be diving into that. The second problem that most people have is they lack a sense of purpose. You know, a mentor of mine once said that, we shouldn't be wandering generalities. We should be meaningful specifics that have a purpose and a plan in life. You know, if you're wandering around just trying to do things here and there and you don't have a purpose behind what you're doing or a big why behind what it is you're trying to pull off, you're not going to be able to forge that power that you ultimately want. Your purpose is ultimately linked to your power. Okay, the third problem that we have today is we want production, but we lack our production, basic production, whether that's income, whether that's generating more wealth, more prosperity in money, or more prosperity in other things, producing valuable relationships, producing meaningful connections with people, production is ultimately linked to your why, which is your purpose. And so without power and without purpose, there is no production. That's the problem that most people have right now. That's why you're not hitting your targets this year. You know, if you sat down and you mapped out what your targets were at the beginning of the year, in as far as your business targets, your income targets, the size of your bank account, are you truly producing at the level that you said you wanted to produce at? And if you are, great. If you're not, maybe it's time that you take a step back and do a little course correction and figure out, what is it that I'm missing here? What is it that I'm lacking here in my production? And the fourth and final thing that we all say that we want that we don't have is that true prosperity. We're not living lives of prosperity. All right, now prosperity is an interesting game. You know, most people say that they want true prosperity, but they don't really have a definition or a meaning behind that word. You know, to me, true prosperity is being able to level up your game in all areas of your life, in your physical fitness and in your body, in your spirituality, your connection to God, your sense of purpose here in life, you know, your relationships, the balance between what you're doing at work and what you're doing at home, the connections you're making with people, those relationships. True prosperity means that you're tackling all of those things, not just the money game, not just the bank account, not just the growth of your business. And so true prosperity is linked to your production, which is linked to your purpose, which is ultimately linked to your power. All right. Now, the problem that we have in the world that we live in today is that we tend to think that we need something external. We need to seek and find that thing that's going to give us true prosperity, right? And unfortunately, that's just not true. And that causes a lot of people pain. It causes pain in your body in the form of anxiety and a loss of a sense of health. You know, how many of you out there right now today have health-related issues that are directly related to stress and anxiety? I know I did for a long, long time. A lot of my clients come to me and they're just suffering. They're in pain, physical pain, because they're so stressed and so anxious because they're not able to produce at the level that they want to produce. And when we map this stuff out and they truly take a step back and they look at the big picture and they realize that all of this stuff is linked together and that there is ultimately a plan, a roadmap for you to achieve true prosperity, when you find that information out, when you tap into that and you start applying those principles, everything becomes easy. You literally go from a sense of stress and anxiety to a sense of feeling physically on fire, feeling like you're energized, you're awake. There's a true awakening that happens. The second area where we feel pain in today's world, in today's economy, if you will, is in our sense of spirituality, our being, our sense of self, our purpose in life. You know, if you sat back and you asked yourself this question, what is your mission and purpose in life? What were you put on earth to do? Can you clarify that in a simple statement? Do you have a mission and purpose statement that you live by, that you tap into every single day? When your feet hit the floor in the morning, do you feel a sense of energy and excitement and enthusiasm? Or do you feel a sense of dread and doubt and just, oh man, here's another day. I got to just live through this. Well, that sense of purpose is directly linked to your physical fitness. If you don't have a sense of connection to God or a sense of purpose of why you're doing what you're doing, you're going to feel it physically. It's going to erode your health. It's going to create more stress, more anxiety. But there is a way that you can actually forge that power physically with a sense of purpose, where you feel like you have a life of exponential abundance and prosperity. The third area where we're in pain right now is in production, because we don't have a sense of balance. You know, maybe you're working long, hard hours and you come home exhausted, and the last thing you want to do is connect with your wife and your kids. Maybe that's you as a business owner or an entrepreneur, that you're just trying to hustle and grind and hustle and grind and hustle and grind. I hate that phrase, hustle and grind. It's a false sense of doing something meaningful. Just because you're hustling and grinding doesn't mean that you're on the path to prosperity at all. You know, in fact, most of the time, I would say 90 to 95% of the time, when I talk to business owners and entrepreneurs and they say, well, I'm just hustling and grinding every single day, working longer and longer hours, I can't see the end, and I don't understand why I'm not seeing the results that I want. When we truly analyze what they're doing, they're just moving around in directions. They're completely directionless. They don't have a plan or a roadmap on exactly what they're doing every single day to hit their weekly targets, to hit their monthly pit stops on the way to their 90-day challenge or their 12-month impossible game. You know, they're just kind of these wandering generalities. And that puts people into a lot of literally physical and emotional pain because they're not able to experience the life that they desire. You see, it all comes back to that feeling of balance where you have the life that you wanted to have. You're building this big thing, this business. You're an entrepreneur for a specific reason. You want a certain lifestyle. You want more time with your family, more time with your kids, better connections, better relationships. But the work that you're doing, that hustle and grind mentality, is just not getting you there. And there's a reason for that. And we're going to dive into that today. The fourth area where we're experiencing pain is in your business or your bank accounts or your income. You know, if you truly did an analysis of your business and your income and your bank accounts, are you where you want to be today? Are you on track to hit your targets, either for the quarter or for the year? It doesn't matter. Are you on target or are you on track? Are you off track or off target? And if you're off track and off target for your money and income, that's going to directly affect your relationships at home, which is going to directly affect your sense of self, your sense of well-being, your sense of purpose, which is going to directly impact your fitness and your health, your anxiety and your stress. And so when we look at these two worlds, you know, these two problems, the problem that we have today, the area that we have the problem, whether it's in a lack of power, a lack of purpose, a lack of production, or a lack of prosperity, the pain that lack of power, lack of purpose, lack of production, and lack of prosperity has on us, the effect is that we're living unhealthy lives. We're sick. We're anxious. We're stressed. We have to go to the doctor more frequently. We got to take medication for everything under the sun. We don't have a sense of purpose or a spiritual connection to God or even a reason to be doing what we're doing. We don't have a clarifying mission and purpose statement. We don't have good relationships. If you're noticing that you're feeling disconnected from your wife or your kids, that is a symptom. That's an indicator of something else. An indicator that you're probably not producing at the level that you want to where you're feeling powerful. You're feeling like you're doing things for a specific reason. And of course, if our business is failing, if our bank accounts aren't full, if we don't feel that sense of stress reduction or relief because we've got cash in the bank or cash in our vault, and we know that we're safe, we know we're protected, that's going to directly affect your relationships. It's going to affect your health, your stress level, your anxiety. It's also going to affect your connection to God spiritually. God wants to bless you with everything, an abundance of prosperity. But the problem is that we're trying to hustle and grind and chase something that isn't meaningful to us. And so we're out of alignment. We're out of integrity with everything else in our life. And it just shows through by these symptoms, you know, the lack of income, the lack of cash in the bank, the lack of safety and security at home, the lack of connection with your spouse or with your kids, the lack of feeling physically fit and healthy. Those problems and that pain is significant. But the good news is there's a path for you to get out of that hustle and grind mentality. Now, let's take a look real quickly at what is possible, what the possibilities are. When you put all this stuff together, when you talk about power and that sense of production, that sense of purpose, that sense of prosperity, when you put it all together, what could be possible in your life? What could be possible if you were able to find a way to tap in and increase your power? If you had the level of power and energy that you want, how would that affect your physical fitness and health? How would that affect your anxiety, your stress level? If you felt an increase or expansion in power, what about your sense of purpose? I want you to pretend that we're waving a magic wand over all of these problems and all of this pain, and we're able to solve all of that stuff. We're able to get you the level of power that you want, the purpose that you're focused on, that you're wanting to focus on, the production level that you desire, the income, the bank accounts, the business that you want to build, and that true level of prosperity that you've been hunting for. You've been hunting that level of prosperity your whole life. What if we were able to wave a magic wand and just deliver that and give you the power that you wanted, the physical fitness that you desire? How would that affect your stress, your anxiety level? How would that affect your connection to God, your sense of purpose? How would that translate into a more meaningful life day in and day out? A stronger sense of why you're doing what you're doing? How would that affect your production at work or with your business? If you had that sense of power, your body's on fire, your health is great, your anxiety and stress level are extremely low, your sense of purpose is connected, you're connected to God and why you're doing what you're doing. How do you think that affects your production? How do you think that translates into more income, more wealth? And how do you think that will ultimately affect your true prosperity? You see, all of this stuff is linked together, all of it. And so when you have the possibility of gaining more power and a greater sense of purpose, when it translates into a higher level of production, which ultimately gives you the prosperity that you desire, everything changes. And so I want you to think for a minute, what would your life look like if we were to wave a magic wand? What would that look like if you had it all together, completely unified as one unit, where you have the level of power that you desire? You have the level of the sense of purpose, the connection to why you're doing what you're doing every single day. And that increases your production. It gives you the income that you want, the business that you desire. And ultimately that sense of prosperity, true abundance, true prosperity, not the kind where it's just up and down and up and down and up and down, but where you're able to stabilize that level of prosperity and grow from there. What would happen in your world? What would it look like in terms of your health or your anxiety level, your stress level? What would it look like in terms of your connection to God or the ability to hear the voice and to actually take action when you hear God calling you to do something? The freedom to do whatever it is that he's telling you to do. The true sense of connection. What would it feel like? I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you're there. You've got the body you desire, the health and fitness that you want. You've got the sense of purpose and connection to God that you've always wanted. The reason why you're doing what you're doing. And it's clear, it's super powerful for you. You've got the level of production and income that you want. And you feel like you're living in this world of prosperity where you have so much that you can actually give back more in a more meaningful way. What does that feel like in terms of your production? How much money are you making at that point? What does your wealth look like? What do your bank accounts look like? What does your business look like? What does the revenue look like? What is the ability to keep that money and grow that wealth? And then ultimately, what does it look like for you to give back and to feel so prosperous that you have an abundance, you have so much that you can give back more time, more energy, more money, more emotion. You can actually pour back into other people's lives. What does that look like for you? Now, before you do this, before you're able to jump and make the leap from here to here and to truly experience that level of power and production and prosperity, you've got to understand that there are some principles at play here. There are some reasons why you're not where you want to be. Okay? These principles are true no matter what is going on in your world. All right? Principle number one has to do with your level of commitment. So when we map out these principles and we analyze them, principle one is commitment. What does your level of commitment look like? Are you truly committed to the outcomes that you desire? Are you committed to doing what's required of you, not just what's comfortable for you? You see, in order to increase your prosperity and to truly achieve the production level that you want, you've got to be committed to the result, which means you've got to be willing to put in the time, energy, effort, and emotion every single day to actually pull off what it is that you say you want. And so if you're not getting the results that you want, we're at the end of the first quarter here. If you're not getting the results you want in your physical fitness, in your health, or in your connection with your wife or your kids, your relationships, your sense of purpose, your connection to God, if you're not seeing the level of production or income in your bank accounts that you truly want, then I'd have you consider the possibility that you're not as committed as you should be. You're not committed to the process. There is a process, a roadmap that can get you from point A to point B. But if you're not committed to the process, you're not going to ever achieve that result. You know, let me take a step back here and tell you a story. I've got tons of clients that I do this coaching and training with. You know, we call it the purpose-driven blueprint. In fact, there's a website you can go to. It's called Purpose-Driven Blueprint.org. And if you go to purpose-drivenblueprint.org, you can take an application there. You can watch a training where I go through how you can actually pull this off, what the practical, where the rubber meets the road, the boots on the ground, the actual practical application of what you need to do in order to pull off this level of production and prosperity that you're desiring. And it all comes back to your sense of purpose and your sense of power. You see, you've got to be able to find a way to actually plug the leaks, plug the holes in your world, in what I call your personal economy. In all areas of life, you've got to analyze where are you at today, and you've got to be clear about that. You've got to be able to focus on the facts and not have any emotional attachment to the facts. Just to look at the data. Are you on track or off track with your targets, with your goals? with your income level, with your bank accounts. You see, all of this is tied together. And if you focus on just making more money without a sense of purpose, you're never going to get there. There is a way, there is a path, a roadmap where you can actually achieve this. But you've got to be committed to the outcome you say you desire. You can't just be, kind of halfway in. You can't have 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You've got to be all in. And it may take, it literally may take you doubling down on your commitments today in order to accelerate or to collapse time and to grow and expand those income goals and that production goal that you say you want. But you got to be committed to the outcome. I always get frustrated with clients when we put a plan in place, we put an actual action plan in place, and they come back to me a quarter later, 90 days later, and they say, oh, this isn't working. This plan's not working. And when we talk about what they've done up to this point to get to where they're at today, which is a lack of results, a lack of production, a lack of prosperity, and this frustration and this anxiety and stress that they're feeling, when we map it out and we work backwards and analyze exactly what they did every single week for a 12-week period, they weren't committed. They weren't committed to the actual process, the plan that we mapped out all the way back at day one. And of course, the first thing they want to do is to blame the process or to blame whatever it is that the plan is. You see, the plan is only as good as your level of commitment. And yes, there are times when you want to take a look at the plan and you want to course correct. You've got to be willing to course correct and make those changes. But if you're not committed on a daily and weekly basis to achieving big things, big targets, big obstacles that you're wanting to bust through, then you're never going to achieve the result that you want if you're not committed. So commitment is the first principle. The second principle, the second rule of the game is you've got to focus on the facts. In other words, what are the data points that you're analyzing? Do you have specific, measurable, and meaningful targets? Do you know that at the end of the week, do you have a checklist of things that you were wanting to do so that you could move the needle closer to whatever your production and prosperity goals and targets were? And if you look back on your week, just looking back on last week, did you do the things that you wanted to do every single day so that you could check them off? Are you on track or off track? Now, this is a tricky one because oftentimes when we're confronted by the facts, when we hold the mirror up and we look at the facts or the lack thereof, look at the results that we've gotten or the lack thereof, and we look at the facts, a lot of times emotion comes into play. Now, we've got to be able to block that emotion out because the emotion isn't going to help you to analyze the facts. I have a saying, I say, no guilt, no shame, new choices. No guilt, no shame, new choices. The facts are just the facts. I love the facts. You've got to become in love with the facts because the facts will tell you every single day whether or not you're on target or off target. All right, principle number 3. The third thing is you've got to be willing and able to set meaningful and specific targets. My mentor used to say, don't be a wandering generality, be a meaningful specific. And so in my coaching process, when you go to purposedrivenblueprint.org and you fill out that application, one of the first things that we do is we're going to start setting targets that are meaningful and specific. We don't set goals. Goals are wandering generalities, not meaningful specifics. A goal is too nebulous. It's too vague. I want to lose weight. Okay, great. That's a good goal. What exactly does that look like? How much weight? What do you weigh today? What are the facts of today? How much do you weigh? What is your body fat percentage? Are you fit? Are you healthy? When was the last time you took a physical? What were the results of the physical? Do you even have a starting point or a metric that you can begin with so that you can measure your growth and expansion? Or is it just a wandering generality? I feel pretty good. I feel pretty fit. I feel okay. If you're feeling okay in all these areas, in your body, your being, your balance, in your business, in your fitness and health, if you're feeling okay, or if you're feeling okay about your connection to God or your sense of purpose, I'd have you consider the possibility that you're in the pit, that your world is not where you want to be, because ultimately we were not put on earth to be okay. You know, we were designed by God to do great things, amazing things. And so if you look at your life, if you look at, you know, everything around you, and you look at your physical fitness, you look at your connections and your relationships with your family, with your friends, if you look at your connection to God, your sense of purpose in who you are, and you look at your income, your bank accounts, your business, your growth, if it's just okay, that's a problem, because you are not meant to be okay. You were meant to do great things. All right, now the fourth and final principle that you have to understand before you're going to be able to make the leap from the problem to the possibility is that you've got to be able to course correct. Course correction is a must. You've got to be able to every week, on a weekly basis, to be able to look back on your week, look at the facts of the week, look at whether or not you hit your targets or didn't hit your targets, and make small adjustments. Because if you've got goals, income goals, goals around your physical fitness, your spiritual connection to God, your relationships, your business, whatever those goals are, if they're meaningful specifics and you're setting weekly targets, then you should be able to say, I'm either on track or off track. I'm either going to hit the possibility in every single different area, or I'm not. And if you're on target, great. That's awesome. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep expanding and growing in that area. But if you're not on target, you've got to be able to course correct. You've got to be able to be flexible enough to make certain changes and adaptations in your world. All right? Does anybody have any questions? If you have any questions, just type below in the comments. Okay, I'm going to be posting this and going to be revisiting it, and we're going to start a dialogue here. Okay, so if you have any questions, reach out to me on Messenger or just in the comments below, post your question. There's something very powerful about a group of people that are producing at a certain level. And when we're all together and we're learning this stuff and we meet up, when you're actually contributing to the conversation, other people can learn from you. And so I want you to be posting your questions below. Post them in the comments, or give me an insight as to where are you at today? What do you see as your biggest problem? And what kind of pain is that problem causing you today? You know, is it creating a situation where you're unhealthy and you're stressed and anxious? Is it creating a situation where you feel disconnected from God or don't have a sense of purpose, a reason why you're doing what you're doing? Is it a disconnection in relationships between your spouse or your kids or your friends or your family? And is it a lack of income? Is your business not growing like you thought it would? What is the key problem? And what is the result? What is the pain that it's causing you right now? Drop a note below in the comment section. All right. So we've got these principles, and these principles are true no matter what. If you're not committed to your outcomes, you're never going to hit the target. You're just not. You're going to be a wandering generality. If you're not focused on the facts, if you're not clear about the facts as they are today, then you're always going to be living in fantasy. And if you're living in fantasy today about the facts, what do you think that's going to do to your future outcomes? Are you going to be able to hit the target that you want? Probably not. If you're living in fantasy and not clear about the facts today, not being honest with yourself and honest with your peers or your mentors, if you're not being 100% truthful in all areas of life, then there's no way, there's no possibility of you achieving what you say you want to achieve, because you're living in fantasy today. And so the future is just going to be fantasy as well. Okay. The third principle that we learned is you've got to hit or set up meaningful and specific targets. They've got to be measurable and meaningful. You've got to be able to measure them. If you're, a certain weight today and you want to lose 20 pounds, that's a good target to hit, 20 pounds. All right. But if you say you want to get healthy and you want to be in better shape, that's not specific. And more importantly than that is, why does that matter to you? Why is that important? That is your big why. Why do those targets matter? What is being fit going to do for you? What is being healthy going to actually do for you? How is it going to affect your spirituality? How is it going to relate to your relationships with your wife and your kids? How is it going to affect your business, your income goals? If your body is fit and on fire, you're going to see a different level of production and outcomes for yourself. But if you're not specific about them and they don't matter to you, they're not meaningful, then you're never really going to hit those targets. Okay? Now, all of this is great and wonderful, but what does that mean? Well, what it ultimately comes down to is you've got to create a plan. And so what is the plan moving forward? And it's one thing to get clear about the problem and the pain or the cost of that problem. What is it costing you right now in relationships, in your ability to give back more in a more meaningful way if you don't have any money in the bank? If you're leaking all of your wealth out of your personal economy in taxes and interest expense, in just overhead and lifestyle expenses. It doesn't matter how much you make if you're not keeping it all. And so one of the key ingredients here is you've got to learn how to plug those holes, whether it's in your level of production and income or your bank accounts or your balance sheet, or plugging the holes in your fitness and nutrition and your health, in your relationships, your connections, your sense of purpose, your spiritual connection to God. None of that stuff matters if you're not able to plug the holes. If you're growing and expanding in one area, but you're leaking power and you're leaking purpose in another area, it's never going to get you to that true land of prosperity. And so when we map out a plan, a game plan, what we focus on is the one door. What is one thing that you need to do today in order to move closer towards your target, in order to truly achieve that sense of power, that sense of purpose, that sense of production, and that sense of prosperity? What is the one thing that you can do right now to kind of move the needle or just kind of move in that direction to where you can actually hit these targets to create more power this week, more sense of purpose and more meaning behind what you're doing, more production in your business, more revenue coming in the door, and more prosperity, that sense of being able to give back more in a more meaningful way? All right. So here's one thing that you can do, just one simple thing that you can do this week to kind of move the needle and get ready to hit those targets. The first thing that you need to do is you need to come up with a game plan. You need to have a simple plan of how you're going to get what you want. All right. Now, when you're talking about that game plan, that can seem kind of overwhelming. You know, how do you piece together a game plan when you don't even see or truly understand how you're leaking power in your life, in your business, in your relationships, in your connection with God? How do you come up with a game plan if you don't even know how to measure your sense of purpose and sense of self, your connection to God spiritually? How do you come up with a game plan if you don't even know what your numbers are in your business? You don't know what your revenue is. You don't know what your expenses are. You don't know what your taxes look like. You don't know where you're leaking that money out of your personal economy. How do you come up with a game plan if you don't know where you're at? And how do you even come up with a game plan to be truly prosperous, where you're giving back more in a more meaningful way, if you don't even know where you're at today? So the first key number one in creating that game plan is going to be schedule a meeting. Actually, the first key before you schedule a meeting, now that'll work. All right. So the first thing you need to do and to really create a plan, a game plan moving forward, is to create a meeting, schedule a meeting with myself. All right. Now, key number two, how are you going to schedule a meeting? You're going to have to fill out an application. All right. Now, these keys that we're talking about, we're going to set up 4 keys that are going to help you to get that one door open this week. All right. We're not talking about what's going to happen the rest of the year, because we don't know how that's going to turn out. But we do know what we can control, which is right now, today. Today is the only day you can control. You can't control tomorrow. You definitely can't control yesterday, but you can control what you're doing today. And if your target today or this week is to map out a game plan to increase your power, your purpose, your production, and your prosperity, then we need to have these 4 keys, 4 specific things. First thing is you got to schedule a meeting. But before you do that, you've got to fill out an application. Now, where do you go to get the application? It's simple. You're going to go to the website, Purpose Driven Blueprint. Now that's a .org, not a .com. It's .org. Go to purposedrivenblueprint.org, and in the top right-hand corner, in fact, I can show it to you here. Let me share my screen real quick. Here's what the website looks like. This is where you're going to go. And you see this little link here that says apply now up at the top right-hand corner. You're going to click that link. And when you click that link, it's going to send you to this brief application. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to analyze your world, what I call your personal economy, in all different levels, all different areas. All right. And you plug the leaks or the holes, then you feel more powerful. You're able to focus more on your health and fitness when money isn't an issue. When you master the game of money by plugging the holes, the leaking holes out of your personal economy, you can focus on what it is you were meant to do. You can focus on your purpose, which gives you a lot more power in the long run. You can focus on your business more effectively, because once the holes are plugged, once the leaks are plugged up, then you're able to focus on producing at a higher level, to creating something bigger, more massive. And ultimately, the game is about growing your wealth and growing your power and your sense of purpose in your production. Why? So that you can give back to society in a more meaningful way. So you can actually do the things that you want to do. So you're going to go to the purposedrivenblueprint.org. All right. And when you've done that, I want you to check that off your list. You're going to fill out the application. When you've done that, check that off. You're immediately going to get an email where you're going to be able to schedule a meeting with me. And so when you've scheduled that meeting, the next thing is you're going to fill out a worksheet. Now, this is a simple worksheet where you're going to analyze, where are you at today? What are the facts today? What are the facts about your body, your fitness, your health, your anxiety level, your stress level? Where are you at today? What about your sense of being, your sense of your connection to God, your spiritual connection, your sense of purpose? Where are you at today, right now? And then what about your relationships with your wife and your kids, your relationships with your friends and your family? You know, do you have meaningful relationships, true connections, or are you just feeling alone in this game? And then lastly, your business, your income, your bank accounts, your balance sheet. You're going to fill out all that information in the form of a worksheet, and that's going to start you on the path to true prosperity. All right, so let's review for a little bit here. Let's take a look at this sheet. What are you seeing right now? When you look at this entire map, what are you seeing for yourself? What does it look like for you? Are you able to identify the problems? Do you know where you're leaking power? Do you know where you're leaking purpose? Where you're wandering, feeling alone? Do you know where you're leaking production? Can you plug those holes in your business and your income and your bank accounts? Do you have a plan for giving back more? Do you have a plan for your legacy, for passing your wealth on to your kids without Uncle Sam grabbing half of it? Is that plan in action already? If you don't, what is the cost in terms of your fitness, your health, your stress, your anxiety? What is the cost in terms of your lack of connection or spiritual purpose? The reason why you're doing what you're doing? What is the cost in your relationships? What is the cost in your lack of connections? And what is the cost in literal dollars right now today, because you're just leaking money out of your personal economy? And what would be possible if you could level up that game in all areas? If you leveled up your body and your sense of power, your health, your fitness, if you leveled up your purpose, your sense of connection to God and why you're doing what you're doing, and really clarified what your mission and purpose statement looked like. What if you leveled up your production, your income level, your bank accounts, your balance sheet? What if we plugged those holes where you're leaking the money so you're able to save more and build more wealth so that you can, why? Level up your game in prosperity and give back more in a more meaningful way. What if your personal economy was running on jet fuel instead of olive oil? What if you had a very meaningful and specific target that you were moving towards? What would your health look like? What would your connections look like? What would your production level look like? And what would your giving look like? What would your charitable giving and philanthropic endeavors look like if you had solved all these problems? And what are the principles that you need to align yourself with in order to pull that off? What are the specific principles or rules that are true no matter what that you need to focus on and dial in on so you can actually pull this game off? All right. So when you know what your one door is, when you're clear about what you want to do, which is to establish a game plan, the 4 keys that open that one door, that unlock that door, that give you the power, the purpose, the production, and the prosperity that you desire, there are 4 simple things you need to do this week. Number 1, you're going to have to schedule a meeting with me. It's going to be a 45-minute conversation where you're going to do all the talking. I'm just going to ask you certain questions and guide you and lead you along a path. All right. We're going to be looking at 4 specific topics in the meeting. We're going to look at what are your passions? What are your unique talents and abilities? What were you put on earth to do? What are your values? And what are your beliefs? What do you believe to be true about the world? What do you believe to be true about yourself? All right. And when we clarify what your passions are, what your unique abilities are and your talents, when we clarify what your values are, whether those values were given to you by your parents or whether they're brand new values that you've implemented yourself, and what your beliefs are, your beliefs about what is possible in the world, what you can and cannot do, what you're able to pull off if you clarify all this stuff. Then we're going to come up with your mission and purpose statement, that clarifying statement that tells everybody in the world what it is you're about. You know, if you're walking down the street, somebody runs into you and starts talking to you and they say, you know, tell me about yourself. What is it about you that you're passionate about? What is it that you were meant to do? What do you believe to be true about the world? What are your values that you hold dear? Do you have a clarifying mission and purpose statement? And when you do, that's when you're playing the game a different way. When you wake up every single day with that purpose-driven statement, the energy increases. Your ability to connect increases. Your sense of health and well-being increases. Your ability to be more charitable and give back more and make more of an impact on the world just increases exponentially. And you start to feel your whole life expanding and growing, which is the whole purpose of life, is expansion and growth. You are not meant to do what you're doing right now. You are meant to do something much bigger, much greater. The reason that you're stuck today, you're stuck in your fitness, you're stuck with your connection to God, you're stuck in your relationships at home and with friends and family, you're stuck in your business. The reason you're stuck has nothing to do with the latest course that you bought. It has nothing to do with your ability to do Facebook advertising. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff. It has to do with these core areas where you're leaking power. You're leaking purpose. You're leaking production. And so, of course, you can't make a dent in the universe. So here's the game plan for the week. You're going to schedule a meeting with me. You're going to fill out an application. You're going to go to purposedrivenblueprint.org to do all of that. And you're going to fill out a worksheet when I send you the invitation for our meeting, our one-on-one meeting. And when we meet, we're going to be talking about this stuff. We're going to be talking about your passions. We're going to be talking about your talents and abilities, your values. We're going to be talking about your beliefs. And we're going to pull all of those together, and we're going to create a clarifying mission and purpose statement. All right, that's the first step. Okay, again, type below any comments or questions that you have for me. And during this week, for the rest of the week, I'll be jumping in and answering those. All right, I hope to hear from you soon. Be kind to each other, okay?